Good morning. I'm now in Princeton, Indiana, and I'm located at the place, or the home site, where we moved when we left Oakdale, Tennessee. We moved to Princeton somewhere in 1959, I believe it was. And so Mom and Dad rented a house, and this is on South Prince. And this is the house that we rented for about a year. And I attended an elementary school right up the block that way. I'll show you that in just a few minutes. But David was attending, I think it was Lowe's, maybe junior high. And I was attending this elementary school right here. But a lot of good memories here. We would play outside all the time. I'd play on the porch. And then we just lived there for about a year. This is the side of the house. And this was our bedroom. And David and I used to play wiffle ball in this backyard all the time. There was a garage right here. The home base would be right here. He'd pitch a wiffle ball, and if you hit it over the fence, of course that was a home run. And it's hard to hit a wiffle ball that far, but it was a nice backyard, had a lot of fun in this area. The kitchen, of course, was right here, but a lot of memories in this house. We have some pictures, I believe, of David and I standing in front of the house on our way to church. And so we'll try to post that on here so you can see what the house looked like from the front. This is the school I went to in the 3rd grade, and it's maybe a block from where we lived on South Prince. But I understand they're about to tear it down. It used to be something to do with school education. But my 3rd grade class was right there in that area right there on the 2nd floor. But we'd come outside and play outside. That's what you did. You had 2 recesses a day, as I recall. And we'd come out and play in this field. There were more trees at that time in this area. But I understand they're going to be tearing that down very soon. But we'd ride our bicycles everywhere we went. And so I'd actually go 1 block on my bicycle that Dad refurbished from one that he had bought used. And we would come up here and just park the bike, go inside, go to classes, play outside, get on my bicycle at the end of the day, and go back to the house. Next, I'm going to take you up to the ball field where David and I played Little League. He actually played in a Pony League, which was an upper level from the Little League. And so David and I first started playing when we lived in this house down there on South Prince. And then he played, I think, first base, infield, and I pitched, and I think I played second base. But we thought we were big. We had those big old uniforms, and maybe I can put a photograph in showing what we looked like in those old baseball uniforms. But that was a big deal here in Princeton, was Little League and baseball. A lot of fun. So let's go up there and see what the field looks like now. I'm now at the field where David and I would play baseball. I mainly played in this field right over here that I'll show you. David and the Pony League were a little bit further up that way, I think, not too far. But there was a higher caliber of baseball than what we did. But a lot of fun memories here. Some of this is new. The basketball court that I'll show you is new. This was all just grass area. This is where we would practice before we'd go out there to play a game. But it was exciting. You felt like a big leaguer. The field, of course, is in the same place. No changes there. Always had a concession stand right here. And the dugouts are in the same place. But this is it. And had a good attendance. I mean, when little kids were playing. Now our infield was dirt. A little bit of difference there. And I think the field, the The fence in the outfield is further out. For Little League, it was a lot closer in. But had a lot of fun here. The bleachers for the parents watching was always to the right of where the dugout wasn't like that. It was concrete, made out of blocks. But nothing has changed too much here. Next, I'll see if we can go up in town just a little bit, show you downtown Princeton, tell you a little bit about the courthouse and things that took place around the courthouse that we used to attend in the late 50s, early 60s. Back in the 1950s and 60s, your social gatherings and shopping was all downtown. And usually many of your smaller towns resembled this. If you go down south, they're like this, and up here in the north, in the Midwest, many towns are like this, where you have a courthouse in the middle, which is this right here in Princeton. I'll try to show this from a distance. It's a beautiful courthouse. But everything took place downtown. All of your shops, shoe shops, ladies' wear, men's stores, eating establishments, banks were all around the courthouse. And of course this has changed also since my day. All of this around the courthouse was grass. And something very interesting I'll show you a little bit later on that we'd often come to, I think it was on a Friday night. They would have an event here in town. It was very interesting. But this location right here was a drugstore. And forgive me, I cannot remember the name, but this is where David, his age, teenagers, which were usually freshmen to seniors, this is where they hung out. You see a lot of movies that go back to the 1950s. They'll show the teenagers getting banana splits and sodas and Coke floats and all. And then they'd have the jukebox going. Well, that's what happened right there. I'm sorry for the sound, but we're not too far from the railroad. The Southern Railway used to come through here. Now it's the Norfolk Southern. And that's why we came to Princeton, and Dad was transferred from Oakdale, actually from Cincinnati to Princeton. There was a bank, best I recall, right here. Now, that's significant because Mom and Dad were part of a group of young adults with small children that started a church, a Baptist church, here in Princeton. And our first place we met, I never will forget it, was in the basement of this bank. And of course it's gone now, which is kind of sad. I'll walk around a little bit, see if I can show the town just a little bit more. When you have a low car like I have, you have to be careful when you pull up. You'll really mess up the front on the curb. So it seems like I'm always parking out in the road too much. Well, just about got hit. You almost got me. You almost got me. That's okay. The parades were always a big thing here in town, and they'd always go around the square. These monuments have always been here since I can remember. Best I recall, this building on the corner was a Farmers National Bank or something like that. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about this. But what we would do, the town would just, people from all around would come here because they would set up right here a big wheel, and inside it was pieces of paper that if you went into a store, you would fill out your name and your address and your phone number if you had a phone, and you would turn it in, and they put all these names and these pieces of paper in a big turn wheel that was like a cage, and every Friday they would select, I don't know, 5, 10 cards, one at a time, and the local merchants would have a prize that you could win. And I imagine it could be almost anything from a toaster, maybe to a washing machine, I'm not sure. But that's what we did, and it was a big event. You can imagine. And plus it was fun. It was a time for people to come together and they would talk. It's usually in the evening time, right before dark. And it was a lot of fun. Kids would see other kids that they knew, and we would just hang out. Something else that they would do during this time of the year, it's the fall time, it's in October, but they would get children from the local schools and allow them to come down during the day, actually, and you could paint fall scenes. It could be Halloween, it could be whatever, on the windows, all of the windows. And I remember that I had one of the windows in this area here that I could paint with some kind of watercolor, but they were all around the whole square. And of course that was a big event for a young person to do, because everybody would come by and look at your drawing, ooh and ah. It was fun. Fall time here in this area was fantastic. You had fall festivals, something was always going on, and of course that would lead right up to Christmas, which you loved. But this is a courthouse. I think it's very pretty. Hadn't changed any. They've kept it up very nice. I'm going to walk on around just a bit. Now, the older Boomer brother, my brother, when we lived here, he worked at a newspaper office, and I can't remember exactly where it was, but I think it was on this street there going down the main road. Of course, this monument has been here for years. Very pretty. Some of the trees are beginning to change. But as I recall, we always got our shoes somewhere on this block. Mom would bring us up and we'd buy our shoes. I don't know which store it was, but it was in this area here. I think next I'll go down and show you where our church was. Of course, remember, we met in a basement of a bank for about, I don't know, maybe a month or two, and then finally they were able to rent or buy an area on Broadway, and I'll show you where our church started there. I think there's a different church there now, but it was called Broadway Baptist. Thought I'd quickly show you the Methodist church here in Princeton that I would come to for Cub Scout meetings. I was a Cub Scout here, then later I was a Boy Scout. And David was also, he participated a lot of time with us when we'd go on camping trips. David would go with us, but where we would meet was in this little area down here in the basement, I guess, of the church. Had a lot of fun being a Cub Scout. So I thought I'd just quickly show you this church, Methodist church. I'm going to drive and film just a little bit as we go through Princeton on one side, and then we'll go down Broadway and show you where the church was that Mom and Dad was part of starting. Guess we remember that church probably 3 years before we were transferred. I guess I could turn right on red, but I don't know. I'll try it. Down on the left here is the Princess, I believe is the name of the theater. I guess it's been here ever since there was a Princeton. I can remember it was always crowded. It was the place, of course, to go to see movies. and you would go sometimes on Saturday. But most of the time it was a date night for my brother. He would go there. I didn't date here, I was too young. But I'm sure that was part of his dating scene, was the Princess. Probably 1960 to 1963, something like that. Of course, this is the old railroad station. Been here for many, many years. And I'm on what they call, I think, Broadway Street. And the church that Mom and Dad were a part of and we were a part of is here on the left. I don't know that I can pull in. I'll see if I can find a place where I can film it and tell a little bit about it from memory. This is where the church was. Same area this church is, but originally there was just kind of a wooden structure right here. That wasn't there. That's a new church. And then there was like an old garage. It was actually a former home. And they moved some walls around, so we had Sunday schools. We had our sanctuary was here originally. Then later they fixed up the garage. It was a large garage into a sanctuary. So we held church back in this area right there. For some time, David, I think, was actually a janitor. He got paid to clean the church up. So that was one of his first jobs to do, was clean up the church. And like I said, I think it was called Broadway Baptist Church. Next, I'm going to head towards David's high school. And I'm not sure I can find the junior high that he went to. I'll see, but I doubt it. But I'll try to go there. And if I have time, I'll go up to where Bowen Heights was. That's where I attended school from the 4th grade until almost the 8th grade. I thought I would stop, get out and walk around the old high school here at Princeton. This is where my brother attended high school. And I think they're outside of town now, but this was the high school, I guess, in the 40s, 50s, 60s. I'm not sure, but of course my brother attended high school here in the early 60s. And a lot of memories, I'm sure, for him. If I can find some pictures of his class, I will. They all look like they came right out of a Back to the Future movie back in the 50s. So I'm going to walk around it and try to find where the gym was, because that's one thing I would do as a boy. With my brother, sometimes we would come to a basketball game, and we'd watch it here in their gym. That was a big thing for a little elementary school kid. I don't know where any of his classes were in the high school here. I'm sure he does. But I do remember we rode the bus whenever we would, when we lived out in Tower Heights. And so the buses would come along the street here and then let some of the high school students out, and then they'd take us to our school. But the gym was around the side here, and it's still there, it appears. You can see we're not too far from downtown. There's the old courthouse. They will probably tear this down before long, so it doesn't look like it's being used for anything right now. But this is where you would enter the gym. And if you know anything about Indiana basketball, you need to watch the movie Hoosier. It is a big thing. And I wonder if this gym is still in there. Yes, it is. You may not be able to see it, but the gym floor is still in there. They look like they're storing a lot of stuff on there. I don't know if you can see very well, but I walked on around. There's 3 basic entrances from the outside, and this is on the north side. But I just wanted to see if you could see that at all. I hope you can. One thing I was thinking about, I don't remember a football field. I'm not sure where they played their football. Because I don't remember going to a high school football game at all. Because basketball was hit. In Indiana, basketball, everything revolves around basketball. Like in Hoosiers, you'll see a basketball goal on the side of a barn. Well, that's true. Dad fixed us a concrete block and blacktop or concrete, I can't remember exactly what it was, in back of our house up in Tower Heights, and he put up a basketball goal for us. That's what we did. This is where I learned to play basketball, was in Indiana. I'm going to walk on around here. This looks like this is all new. I guess this is the so-called east entrance into the high school. But I do remember coming to David's graduation. It was in the gym also, best I recall. Next, I think I'll take you to where I went to elementary school. It's no longer there. It's been torn down, sadly. But I think I have some old pictures that I can attach to the video to show you what it looked like. So that'll be the next place. Bowen Heights Elementary School. I'm up where Bowen Heights School was, and I'm going to show you something. You're going to see how drastically things have changed over the last 10 years. This is looking up the street. On the left was the school, the elementary part, I guess 3rd through 8th. On the right, I'm sorry, on the left was something like the 3rd grade through the 6th. And over on this side was 7th and 8th, I believe. And this is where I attended school in the 4th grade up to the 8th grade. And as you can see, changed drastically. Nothing to remember it by. Other than maybe you'll see that the road's a little wider up here. And that's, of course, where people could let kids off to go to school. Played basketball here. Had some good friends established here. In fact, in just a few minutes, I'm going to meet some friends that I haven't seen since 1963. So it's almost, I guess, 57 years, something like that. We'll just see how much we've all changed. I'm going to take my book so I can remember what they used to look like, and then I can maybe remember some stories about our youth. This is the house that Mom and Dad bought. I think it's the first house they ever bought in their life. But this is in Tower Heights in Princeton. And I think I have some photographs when it was originally built, but it was built somewhere in about 1959, 1960. And so this is where we lived for about 4 or 5 years. A lot of great memories here. The Mosers lived next door to us, and they were good friends. And in the backyard was just all grass. And in the field back there where the trees are is where I used to just play a lot during the summertime. But this is the house. We originally had a carport right here, and then beyond that was just grass. But it hasn't changed that much. They built something in the back, but the grass looks the same. Mom always had a lot of tulips along there. Next door was all field, just a big old grassy field. And we used to play baseball in this field an awful lot. The neighbor kids are next door neighbors and others would come up, and we'd have some pretty good ball games. I'll see if I can walk around the side here. Of course, this is all new. There was nothing in this field whenever we lived here. The hospital was being built right when we left in about 1963. But I used to play in those woods all the time, David and I and the neighbor boys. But this was all grass, every bit of it. So home base would be there, we'd pitch and we'd hit up the hill. And that's our backyard. Of course, it's hard to see. None of that was there, that was all grass. But Dad put in a concrete foundation right there for us to have a basketball goal. And our basketball goal was right there. And we'd play that all day too. Even in the wintertime, the net would be frozen and we'd still go outside and play. That's what you did in the 50s and 60s. There wasn't much on TV. And so as soon as you got home from school, you went outside. That tree has always been there. Of course, it was much smaller when we lived here. Great place. I think I'll try to take you to the park where the swimming pool was. In the summertime, we would go there, ride our bicycle, and it was a community pool, and we'd do that. But then one of the memories I have of this location is this backyard was nice and green. And July the 4th, we'd come in the backyard, Dad would cook hamburgers or something like that, hot dogs, and then we'd set out chairs and we would face that direction there. Right over those trees, maybe a half a mile, is a fairground, and they would have fireworks. So from our backyard, July the 4th in the evening time, we would see fireworks all across there. Wonderful memories of the early 1960s and the late 1950s. Just a quick comment before I leave the old house. As Mom and Dad's bedroom was here, David and I slept in the middle bedroom, and the back was for guests. And the basement downstairs was unfinished, and that was kind of our playground. Just do whatever you wanted to down there. Nice big area. A memory I have is this area of southern Indiana is prone to have tornadoes from time to time. And we would get a tornado warning, and Mom would take us downstairs and we'd get in the corner until the tornado warning would go away. Just a memory I have as a boy, because she knew that was the safest place to be. And there would be some snows during the wintertime that were really deep, and wind was always blowing from the west, it seemed like. And so we'd have big old snow drifts here and all across the back. And it was beautiful. And for a boy to have that much snow and sledding through those hills back there, it was fun. Okay, let's go next to the community pool. But this is the swimming pool, community pool. If you've ever seen the movie Sandlot, there's a pool sequence in the movie that reminds me of this in my youth. Of course, this has changed a great deal. At that time, the only thing there was back in my day, the only thing there was just a big square. They've modernized it and put a lot of different rides in it and so forth. But it was just a large pool. It had a diving board, and this is where the kids came in the summertime. It's been upgraded quite a bit. But basically, I think this building is very much the way it was back then, although it's, again, been updated. But it's kind of funny the way you'd go in and you would get a pin that had a number on it, and that was your locker number. And so you'd go into the men's side or the women's side, and you would go ahead and change your clothes, put your clothes in the locker, lock it, and it'd have a pin on it, 1 to 50 or something like that. And then it had where you would actually attach it to your swimming suit. And then, of course, when you were finished, you go back into the men's room, change, and you'd have that lock and unlock it, put your clothes back on, and then you would leave and turn in the key. That's the way it was back then. Lots of fun. This is Camp Carson, just a little bit east of Princeton. But this was a significant place in the 50s and 60s. Very nice place. It's a YMCA camp, Carson. Maybe it's always been YMCA, I'm not sure. But in the late 50s and 60s, this is where companies from time to time would, I guess, rent out a part of the space down near the lake down here. And they would put together a small carnival. And they would invite all the employees to come out, and the children would play, and they'd have little rides that you could ride on, and also they'd have swimming. And one thing that I remember in particular is that all the kids would get out into a little pool area down here, and I'll show you that. And we would be in the water, and someone on I guess on the bank there, an older gentleman or someone, would take coins. And they would throw the coins out into the swimming area, out in this area up there. And of course, all as kids, we would jump down and try to find the money. What a great memory that was. But you could come out here and swim. I remember one time as Cub Scouts, we came out here, we stayed in some cabins, and best I recall, they were up there. I want to see if I can find out if they're still there or not. But it was so cold, it got down to 0, I think. They had one large cabin up in here, and that's where Mom and Dad and a lot of the other parents were, waiting on us, and we would spend the night up here, and we'd have cookouts and all. But it got so cold during the night that our parents came and got us and took us to the large cabin where they had a fireplace. And probably around 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I remember my mother saying, you know, we might as well go to the house and stay warm. And so we got in the car and we left. It was just, it was a good time, but it was time to be over because it was so cold. Let's see if we can find, if there's any cabins left. I doubt it. I just met with Ryan here in the admin office at Camp Carson. He showed me around quite a bit. It's been a big help. These cabins over here were built in the 50s, and I walked in that, and it didn't look like I remembered them. So Ryan said that there's one here that goes back to the 40s. He said it's one of the original ones, and I kind of described what it looked like. He said this may be where you stayed. There were 12 of these all along here in a horseshoe shape. These were all new. And this is one that looks very familiar. I described the way it was inside. He said, well, look inside this. So let me take you inside here. And as soon as I stepped in, I said, this is the type of cabin that we stayed in. It got so cold. This bunk is the way the bunks were. I don't know, I hope you can see them. But these were the bunks. They were here. There were bunks here, over and under, over and under, over and under, and then across here. Ours did not have a fireplace, the one that I stayed in. This one does. But I remember when you walked in, I stayed in a bunk like this, right there, and it got so cold. No heat, down to 0. You had no insulation, and you had these windows like that you were freezing. But what a memory. This is it. This is the kind of cabin that we stayed in without a fireplace. So this is one of the originals. He said it was built back in 1941. I believe, 1941. But again, there were 12 of these. So Mom came and checked on us and Dad and saw that we were freezing and said, just let's come over to the main cabin. So we went over to the main cabin, which he said was somewhere over in this area there. It's no longer there. And that's where Mom and Dad said, well, it's time to go home. It's just too cold. It's probably 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. But it was in this area here. Great, great memories. But that's one of the original. Really nice. I will walk over here. And there's actually plaques on these little cabins here. And these are ones that people, I guess, can rent out for the weekend. But they're nice. As soon as I stepped in this, initially, I thought this might have been one of the cabins. But number one, it's far too big. And it's too nice. But I'll show you the plaque that's on the side. This was built June 1950. So this is a little bit younger than me. I was born March 1950. So it's 71 years old. See what it looks like inside. But you see it's actually furnished. But in the summertime, I guess if somebody wanted to come and stay, they could stay here. I don't know if you can see this or not, but there's a bedroom and a bathroom. And 2 bunk beds. So sleep 4 kids there. I don't see a fireplace in here, but I'm sure it's heated. It's heated somehow or another. But right there's the furnace. But there's no insulation, so if you come, you better come in the summertime. Wintertime, you're going to freeze. YMCA Camp Carson. Really a nice place. And again, Ryan was a big help. He had some old photographs in there that kind of showed where a lot of the buildings were. There was a dining hall that was actually closer to the lake initially. But like I said, I remember when they had company get-togethers out here. This is the area that had all the rides and the games, and then we would swim down there. That might finish up my trip to Princeton. I can't think of any place else right now to film. At least not this time. Really a nice area out here. So until next time. Hey, I'm back. I'm back just for a second. I just wanted to show you a close-up of where the men would be on the banks here, and they would throw money out in this area right out through here. And this is where all the kids would be. And I'm just wondering if there's still some silver dollars, maybe silver quarters, that have never been found out in this area right here. Ah, boy, it's awful tempting to jump in and see, but I'll save that for another time. Okay, talk to you guys later.